When we're facing a problem as huge and as complicated as global climate change, it's easy to get lost. The science can feel totally overwhelming, and the politics, well, they just seem stuck. So, where do we turn? What can philosophy actually offer us? How can it help us cut through all that noise and just think a little more clearly about our own responsibility? Well, let's dive in and break it down.
To get started, let's just step back from the frantic pace of the modern debate for a second. For literally centuries, wisdom traditions have been trying to get us to see the world not just as a thing, but as a precious, life-giving creation. This passage from the Quran, for example, it frames our planet's life support systems as a profound gift, something that really demands our care and our attention. And what's amazing is how that ancient idea connects so perfectly to a modern scientific concept, the biosphere. I mean, just think about it. It's this impossibly thin, fragile layer of life, sandwiched between the hard rock of the Earth and the endless vacuum of space. It's a common resource, right? No single person owns it, but our entire civilization, every one of us, depends on it for the air we breathe and the world we live in. Okay, so let's hold on to that idea, our environment as this fragile, shared gift. Because modern science, well, it takes that ancient wisdom and adds a layer of stark, undeniable urgency. Now this is where it gets really serious. Today, there is a massive consensus among climatologists on two core things. First, that our climate is changing in ways that could genuinely threaten human civilization as we know it. And second, that these changes are largely anthropogenic. That's just a scientific way of saying they're the result of our own human activity. So you think, okay, the science is clear, we should have a clear response, right? But that's where we just hit a massive wall. This scientific problem, it very quickly becomes a political one, and that leads to this frustrating global gridlock. Let's try to unpack why that is. I mean, it's really the question of our time, isn't it? If the experts are all sounding the alarm, why is it so incredibly hard for the world to get on the same page and actually do something? And look, the obstacles aren't just about a lack of willpower. They're built into the system. You've got nations that don't want to take on huge economic costs, especially if they can't trust other countries to do the same. International agreements, they often don't have any real teeth to enforce them. And then you have these deep, deep disagreements between developed nations who've already industrialized and developing nations who feel like they deserve their chance to grow. It is a classic, frustrating gridlock. This whole situation can feel hopelessly complicated. So to really get to the heart of the debate, let's use an analogy. It's a little story that makes these huge abstract problems feel much more real. Let's imagine a group of lost hikers. So, picture this. A group of hikers is way up in the mountains. The weather's turned nasty, visibility is awful, and they finally have to admit it. They are completely lost. Now, they've got enough food to last a few days, so they're not panicking yet. But they absolutely know they're in a dangerous spot. And this is where the analogy just clicks, because it perfectly mirrors the two sides of the climate debate. On one side, you have the experienced hikers. They know the risks, and they argue for the cautious path. Let's turn back, let's get down to a safer altitude, and let's save our energy. But then you have the others who want to stay the course. They're saying, come on, we've come so far. The pass has to be just ahead. Let's not waste the whole day's effort. It's a huge gamble. And what we're looking at here, well, philosophers have a name for this. They call it a prudential dilemma. It basically means the main challenge isn't about good versus evil. It's about collective prudence, about what the wisest, most sensible course of action is to keep everyone safe, especially when you don't have all the facts. The hiker story is a really powerful way to frame the problem, right? It helps us think about risk and wisdom, but is it the whole story? Does it really capture everything that's at stake in our real-world climate dilemma? Yeah, it's missing something absolutely huge. Because the problem we're facing isn't just about what's prudent for the group. It is, maybe even more fundamentally, a question of justice. Think back to our hikers for a second. The reason their dilemma is so, well, simple is that everyone's in the same boat. The stakes are shared equally. Everybody's climbed the same mountain. Everybody's facing the same cold. Whatever they decide to do, the costs and the benefits are going to fall pretty evenly on everyone in the group. But in our world, it's the complete opposite. The risks are profoundly, deeply unequal. The world's poorest people are the ones who are going to be hit the hardest by this. And the costs of fixing it? Those don't fall evenly either. And maybe most important of all, the decisions we make right now, today, impose massive costs on future generations, on people who aren't even here yet to have a say in any of it. So, if justice is the real issue here, how do we even begin to approach it? Well, philosopher offers us two really different ways of thinking about what it means to be responsible. On the one hand, you've got what's called blame responsibility. This is all about looking backwards, it's about pointing fingers and trying to figure out who is at fault. On the other hand, you have remedy responsibility. This is a totally forward looking approach. It says, okay, let's set aside the blame game for a minute and ask two simple questions. What needs to be done right now, and what's a fair way to share the work of getting it done?
And you can see why this remedy-first approach is so powerful. It just cuts through all the arguments and gets down to business. It breaks the whole problem down into two manageable steps. First, we use the best science we have to figure out what we actually need to do. And second, we have a real, honest debate about how to fairly share the costs of that action, which probably means asking those who've benefited the most from industrialization to carry more of the weight.
And all of this leaves us with one final and maybe the most profound question of all. It's a question that gets right to the heart of this entire dilemma. When we know that our actions today could create a historic crisis for generations to come, does their fate, their survival, count more than our economic comfort right now? Science can't answer that question for us. That, in the end, is a question of justice.